I'm Michael Heidinger for Radio St. Rose, and today I'll be speaking with guitarist Matt Smith about his music, his books, and his musical journey from New York to Austin, Texas.
Make the most of a bad situation. Do what you gotta just to work it on out. Ain't no use in procrastination. Sooner or later gonna get found out. Do what you say. Say what you mean. Do what you say. Gotta walk the talk. Walk the talk. Do what you say. Say what you mean. Do what you say. Gotta walk the talk. Walk the talk.
Let's start at the beginning. When did you first become interested in music?
When I was 10 years old. There was always instruments in my parents' house, and I always just was attracted to it, and I just it was something I could do growing up in upstate New York, where there was really nothing else to do. Especially growing up in Clifton Park was pretty rural at the time, and music was something that I just kind of gravitated to. There was always guitars and instruments in my house that were from generations of musicians in my family before me. So there's always instruments around. Some of them half completed, but there's always interesting instruments around. And I just gravitated towards guitar, and there was an old piano, and I played a little piano, and I actually realize now that, I don't know if I'm getting off the subject too much, stop me if I am, but for example, I was always attracted to the sound of the piano with the sustain pedal depressed. And I would listen to the overtones, and that really kind of got me interested in the sound of strings interacting with one another. I realize now, Mike, on a personal note, that everything I've been doing ever since then has been chasing that sound, whether it's music production or what I play. Everything has been chasing that sound.
Really? The pedal sustain on the piano?
Well, it's the strings, the overtones, those notes. It was like a natural harmonic reverb. Remember, the first guitar I ever had was a 1916. I still have it. It was my grandfather's and my father's. It was a 1916 harp guitar. And even though the harp strings weren't on it, I think I was something about that instrument and the idea of it kind of resonated in my soul. And still does to this day. I play that guitar all the time. I can rest my head up on the upper neck, I could still do that when I was a little boy. I used to do that. So,
Who were your influences when you first started playing?
Oh man, everything I ever heard.
Everything you ever heard.
When I first started playing, sure. Remember when I was probably 1969. I was 10 years old. I'm 53 now. So it would have been around 1969 when I really started playing the guitar. And there was so much interesting music around that everything I heard was new and interesting. I just would hear things for the first time I'd never heard. I used to listen to Don Kirshner's rock concert or Midnight Special, and all of a sudden I'd see the Mahavishnu Orchestra, something that would blow my little head off. Or something like that, So, or for example, the first time I heard the Allman Brothers or the Rolling Stones, or because at that time the Rolling Stones were doing a lot of interesting open tuning and slide guitar things, and I just loved the funkiness and the greasiness of everything. And at the same time, Sly and the Family Stone, and things like that, and those other early funk bands that I really liked a lot. And also at the same time, guitarists like Leo Kottke, when I first heard him, and people like that, There was so much information all the time. I was just fascinated with everything. And I would constantly go back to listen to. I would like, Guitar Player magazine had just started, I think, in 1971 or something, and I would read about some of my favorite guitar players, and I would read about who they listened to. Then I'd go back and listen to them, and just keep trying to go back in time and find the roots of things.
How long was it before you started playing in bands?
I was 13 when I first started playing professionally. I was the kid in school. In every school, there's a kid that has a beard, way younger than he's supposed to, and can buy beer for everybody. And I was that guy. I was that guy. So I could actually play professionally in bars at 13, and that's when I started with my first band and started doing that. I started out playing bass because there are guitar players everywhere, and still play bass to this day as one of the many instruments that I love to play.
I never knew that you started playing bass in bands.
See, that's what happens when you interview me. You find out stuff you didn't know, even though we've known each other for all these years.
And didn't you eventually move to San Francisco?
When I was a boy, I left high school and became a street musician in San Francisco. And I was there for twice. I went out once, and then I came back, and I lived there again, and pretty much played guitar all day long, and busts on the streets, both in Berkeley, California, and in like Market Street and Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. And very, very many interesting characters.
And what time was this? What year? What decade?
This was it would have been 70s, mid 70s, 76, 77. That was the time period. 76, 77. I had amazing adventures. I actually went out for a weekend retreat once with the Jim Jones cult. I remember that very clearly because I remember him telling me, "Yeah, here's our retreat in Guyana." I'm like, "These people are weird. I don't know what's going on." I had no idea what a cult was, and I'm like, "This isn't right. Whatever this is, I'm not buying it."
Oh man!
But there was all kinds of amazing stories like that when I was young, growing up. But the adventure still goes on, Mike. It goes on to this day, all the time. I'm just having this amazing. I have this one band. You may have seen it in some of my Facebook posts, the Hot Nut Riveters, which is an all acoustic band that we play. Everyone plays a ton of instruments. Amazingly talented musicians, and we have this residency. And I play about 5 or 6 different instruments in that. And I was just rehearsing the song. I actually busted out Billy Preston's "Nothing from Nothing." Means nothing. You remember that song?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we're doing this really cool ragtime version of it, which is great. So that's what I was doing when you called. It's like, it's still, everything's so much fun and full of wonder. All this time as a professional musician, and I still love it as much as I did when I first played.
Better than others. Some days just take a toll. Trouble comes from every direction. Can't find no comfort for your soul. Struggle on. All that we do, struggle on. It's all that we do, struggle on. Struggle on. For what seems like forever, all we can do is just hunker down and wait for the storm to pass over. Get by some way, somehow, struggle on. All that we do, struggle on. It's what we do, struggle on. Struggle on.
You have an album called Matt Smith's World that I was listening to.
Oh, you mean my latest one? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, it struck me as because I remember the Matt Smith Band recordings from the 1990s, and that was more of a straight-ahead rock. And now you have more of a not necessarily world sound, but there's Latin influences and jazz influences. You've definitely expanded beyond the guitar-based rock.
Well, what's interesting about that record? Yeah, no, for certainly. As members have been traveling for years and years and years, and been exposed to all these amazing musicians and all this amazing music from everywhere that I've traveled. And being one of the biggest things was all those years at the National Guitar Workshop and meeting all these different amazing musicians from all over the country who were very similar to stage in their career as I was, and us sharing ideas. Michael, you would love this because every Wednesday, still to this day, I have this thing called Guitar Workout at my house, and I invite really, really good guitar players around Austin to come in, and for 2 hours we work on stuff we really can't do yet. We'll do really, really intense jazz things, and then everyone's got their iPhone out. We're all stealing each other's licks. Do that again. Let me see what you did there. That's great, and that's how we do it. But even now, to this day, that kind of stimulus, I guess, is really, really important for me. I need to be fed. I need to get my butt kicked. I need to I need to be around positive, creative people. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
On
yeah.
a totally personal level, you know what I'm talking about. and so I've just made that happen for myself where I am now. I'm in Austin now. I've been here since 2009, and producing records a lot. Right after your interview, I have to go down and work with this other band here. They're an amazing kind of world music Mexican-American band that plays wicked, intense flamenco-flavored rock, but a lot of it's in Spanish and everything, and I'm working with them on their new record. I've done probably 14 albums since I've been here, since 2009. As a producer and playing and stuff. So Austin is this incredible scene, just an incredible fertile scene. There's over 8,000 musicians that live here.
Wow. From upstate New York with the Matt Smith Band. You moved to New York City, and what was the experience?
And I did 15 years in New York City, sure.
Yeah, and what was that like when you were there, the music scene?
New York City was a rite of passage for me. It was when I was in upstate New York, I was pretty much at the top of my game up there, and I wanted to get to a place. There's amazing musicians in upstate New York, just incredible musicians up there. And I'd had a great time, but I knew what the scene was there, and I needed to grow, and I had been exposed to all this music and all these great musicians from the National Guitar Workshop, and I'm like, I need to go to a bigger pond. I need to go to a place where I can learn. And one can learn for the rest of their lives in New York. There's so many amazing musicians, and it really is a rite of passage. And, and I learned a tremendous amount about music, about being in an ensemble, about playing with other musicians. I learned so much about so many different things, and I just fell into everything I could find. I played Irish music and rock, and I played all kinds of different things, reggae, and every kind of music, Irish music, like I said, every kind of world music you could possibly. And I started collecting instruments at the same time. I started doing clinics for I guess 25 years. I did all the clinics for Ovation guitars and a lot with Takamine and Hamer guitars and other companies that I've worked with along the way. And still looking at other companies are still talking to me about doing more of that work for them. But it was exposed me to a very, very high level of musicianship. And so living in New York was great. I did really, really well there, but during the time I was traveling 6 to 8 months a year, so I didn't have a chance to really dig into the New York scene as much as I wanted to, because I was out doing clinics and master classes and teaching and stuff and different things. And when I was in town, I worked as much as I could and did session work, and I learned how to make records and learned how to produce. It was a great place. But by the time I'd left New York, I needed to get out of New York. And then the studio scene had dried up, and it was time for me to leave. And my mom and dad had retired to Austin years and years and years ago, and I would always come down here. And finally, I was down here for a couple of weeks over the holidays, and I guess 2008, and I said, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want to go home. I want to stay here. And that's when I decided to move here. But my time in New York was filled with meeting amazing people and networking and making a great, really, really good connections that I still value, and friends that are still my good friends to this day. But you know what I miss the most is up there. I just saw a movie last night, Mike, about I don't know if you've seen that movie, Place in the Pines.
Yeah, Place Beyond the Pines. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
How was it?
I saw it. It was really interesting, really long, but it was really interesting for me to see. So I'm like, I know where that is. I know where that is. That's right there. Oh, look, there's that ice cream shop, or something else. You see all these different things, and constantly talking about places in Schenectady and things like that. It's just a really interesting story, and I think I remember something about this story. Anyway, I don't know if it happened or not. I don't know if it did. But anyway, it's certainly worth seeing. It was great. I took my girl here, and she was up, came up there with me last year when I came up to visit very quickly for a couple of days. And, so that was great.
Rock and roll star like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. Don't have no great big house or no fancy new car. I can't buy you no diamonds or gold. All I have to give you is this simple song. Don't say much and it don't last that long, but it comes straight from my heart and I give it to you with my love. Simple, 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 simple song of love for you. Simple, 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 simple song of love for you, babe.
The Austin scene is the most vibrant, amazing music scene in the world today. There's over 8,000 musicians that live here. There's over 2,000 bands, and there's over 200 club shows a day on any given day. So everywhere you go, there's this giant, huge community of musicians, which means that most musicians here are playing for tips. So there's not a lot of money in it, but the great thing about Austin, it doesn't cost a lot to live in Austin, and there's an amazing, friendly community here. I've been able to do well here just by making records for people, but in my studio, I've been very blessed to have produced a lot of records for Austin artists, and still do. and it goes in waves. But what's happening now is that people are starting to realize that they can't sell records, so they're making lots less of them than they used to. Where a band might have made a record a year, they might make a record every 3 years and then try to do it as much as themselves as they can, you know. At the same time, music has become an advertising tool rather than a sales item. So really, the reason to record and write music now is to get press and to build a story so that you can go out and play and make money. The interesting thing here is you have this amazing, vibrant music scene and a great music community. I love it here. You would love it. You should come to visit Austin sometimes, Mike. You would just love it here. You really would. You'd be like, oh my God. It's amazing here. It really is. I mean, this is the place people go out to see music. That's what they do for fun around here. You know what I mean? That's what people do here. They go out and see bands. There's bands everywhere. There's bands at the airport. There's bands in the supermarkets. There's bands everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Well,
check out the Austin Chronicle.
The Austin Chronicle.
Austin Chronicle is like the Metroland of here, and you'll see a lot about stuff like that and what's going on there. But here, because you have so many people, I mean, because you have so many bands playing, and I mean, it's really kind of insane. Like, there's clubs virtually everywhere. And the weekends, a person can start gigging at like 8 in the morning at a church gig and continue gigging till, 2 in the morning or 1 in the morning or something. You know what I mean? So it's possible to have 3 or 4 gigs a day. However, a lot of them don't pay very much money. But the good thing is, most people play for tips, and tips can really do well. People are very used to tipping bands here, so it's not. I mean, I couldn't make a living playing gigs in Austin. I don't think most people can. But it's a great place to live because we also have a thing here called Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, which provides almost, very, very low-cost health care where anybody can afford,
Yep.
for musicians, which is great. Things like that. So it makes it a very attractive place to live. And just the vibrancy of what's going on here. It's like New Orleans also has that vibe going on where people are there and they're really serious about music.
What will I do? Where will I go? What will I say to the people we know? The ground's still shaking under my feet. What will I do without you? When is the time? How will I know? When I have the strength to finally let go. Life will be different. Can I even change? What will I do without you?
You've written a couple of books, including Chop Shop for Guitar and Alternate Tunings for Guitar. How did the books come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have quite a few books now. I've just finished a revision on my blues books, which is great because that means it'll give it a whole new life. So I revised the whole book, and that's coming out again. And it started from my association with the National Guitar Workshop. They started a publishing arm, and then I also did some stuff with Hal Leonard and different people. And I've written a bunch of books. I mean, there's sometimes they would make books out of my books. All of a sudden there'd be new books, a new series of books out of my books that I didn't even have to write, and that'd be like another book that paid me royalties. Book royalties have also gone way downhill, Mike. It's the same as recording. People can get anything online, you know what I mean? And so what's happened is there's been a sea change in everything about how to extract value from something that we've spent an entire lifetime learning. I've spent my entire life building my skills and honing my skills and doing the best I can with it. And somehow I'm able to make a living because if one thing isn't working, another thing works. Another thing I've been doing now, Mike, that's been really, really important to me is that I work with kids at Phoenix House. Phoenix House is a drug and alcohol rehab center. They only have 3 residential ones for kids between 13 and 17. And several days a week I go in and teach them music, and they have a studio. I've done 57 songs with these kids since the last April, just over a year. And that transformative experience, because this has been, I've countless recordings and everything, working with these kids and hearing what they have to say, some of the most powerful, raw things I've ever heard. A lot of it's hip-hop, because that's what they've been to, and that's fine, and I teach them how to do it, and I teach them in the program, and it's been an amazing experience, and it's really changed my life. And then here I get to interact with what's really going on out there, and how little confidence they have, and trying to build their confidence through music, and seeing them transform and gain confidence through that program. Remember, these are kids between 13 and 17. A lot of them are on heroin, or they've been on crack, or a lot of them are meth addicts or whatever, or alcoholics, and they're young kids. It's hard enough just being 13 to 17. Oh my God, remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
And let alone being drug addicted, and most of them are there because they've been court ordered. You can either go to rehab or you can go to jail. So they've been in trouble, and a lot of them still are in trouble. And even in the course of a year, I've seen several of them back several times, which is tough. But that's been one of the most rewarding, incredible music experiences I've ever had to deal with. It puts everything else into perspective on what's important.
There's black clouds on the horizon, and the air is bone cold. So the rain will fall so hard, send a chill right through your soul. And it seems like in this dirty old town, all it ever does is rain. 'Cause the dusty streets of broken dreams and wash away the pain. And I feel so cold and lonely, I'm just trying to keep warm. And I need your love to cover me, give me shelter from a storm.
I've noticed that your website, mattsmithworld.com, is under construction. What's going on there?
It's been hacked so many times by Russians that I just gave up on it. You know what I mean? I would do it, and all of a sudden it would get hacked, or I'd get an email bomb attacked, or it's been hacked, and I'm like, what's good? I'll just be on Facebook. People don't go to websites. Michael, you have to understand this about me. I don't really care that much about my industry of who I am. I care very deeply about music, but unfortunately, like a lot of musicians, I'm like, when it's become too much of a pain in the butt to do, you know what I mean? I try to, I like that, I'm not concentrating on. You'll notice I have started another business called Musicians United for Music. Last year, the National Guitar Workshop went down after all those years, after almost 30 years in the business, it went down. And, so what I've been doing, myself and some of the other instructors are starting a music community called Musicians United for Music. And we have a Facebook page I'd like to direct people to. Just look for Musicians United for Music. I'm there. And people can find me under Matthew Smith. You can put my Facebook URL or whatever. You know where it is. And just put it on there. People can reach me through there if they're interested. And then, but Musicians United for Music is, we're going to just load it up. I first started to think about it as something to replace the National Guitar Workshop, because we have this amazing faculty of world-class instructors all over the country. Then after we had one workshop, and it was okay. The problem was the workshop took a lot of people's money when it went down, and And so the reputation of the workshop is such that I can't really use their name anymore, unfortunately. So, I mean, that's a shame, and the legacy of that is a shame because, so many of us have gone through that, and I came up with it, and that was a tragedy. But so what we're trying to do now is really do something where we just create a community of lessons and cool stuff about music that we're putting under there, So Musicians United for Music.com is something that is going to grow a lot this year and start doing an online community. And I think one of the things that's true, while music is becoming increasingly devalued, information and the ability to disseminate information in an exciting, fun way will always have value. So that's something I'm also working to do.
Thanks for talking.
Great to hear your voice. I want to interview you is what I want to do and find out what you've been doing and what's going on with you in your life.
Make the most of a bad situation. Do what you gotta just to work it on out. Ain't no use in procrastination.